She signed his termination papers and ruined his life over a corporate lie until her car broke down on a pitch-black highway at night, and the only person who pulled over to help was the single dad she got fired. The turning point on Chapman Highway late at night, along Chapman Highway in South Knoxville, a quiet road stretched into darkness. Trees pressed tightly against both sides of two narrow lanes, devoid of streetlights or standard shoulder space. Laura Mitchell sat behind the wheel of her Audi as its dashboard went completely black. The engine sputtered into absolute silence, and the car rolled onto a rough gravel patch. Her phone battery flickered at 8%. Stranded with no immediate gas stations or illuminated buildings around, she called roadside assistance, only to learn that dispatch would take at least 90 minutes due to priority zones. With no other option, she switched off her phone to preserve the remaining charge. Cars sped past her stranded vehicle without slowing down. A first set of headlights flashed by, then a second, and a third. A fourth truck approached, slowed its speed, and carefully pulled onto the gravel shoulder a few yards ahead. The truck's engine cut off, a heavy door swung open, and work boots stepped onto the loose stones. A man wearing a canvas jacket stained with motor grease stepped under the beam of his headlamp. As he approached the driver's side window, Laura recognized him immediately. Keith Palmer. 2 months earlier, Laura had signed the official paperwork that ended Keith's career. Yet on this dark stretch of highway, he was the only driver who stopped. Keith did not utter a single word of reproach. He walked straight to the hood of her vehicle, instructed her to pop it, and began working under the dark sky. The incident at Ridgeline Logistics 2 months prior. During the first week of June, Keith Palmer was employed as a fleet mechanic at Ridgeline Logistics on the south side of Knoxville. A steady professional, with 3 years at the company, he maintained an immaculate record. To ensure complete accuracy, Keith kept 2 separate records, a digital file on the corporate system, and a physical, handwritten spiral notebook thick enough to stop a door. Every vehicle passing through his bay was thoroughly inspected and marked with his initials in 2 separate places. In May, while inspecting Truck 14, Keith discovered that the brake pads were dangerously worn past standard specification. Over 3 consecutive weeks, he filed 3 separate maintenance requests urging an immediate replacement. Each time, the request mysteriously vanished from the company's digital system within 24 hours. Lacking administrative authority to pull a fleet vehicle off the road independently, Keith continued entering the dates and warnings in his spiral notebook, instinctively aware that the corporate system was failing to track the issue. In early June, Truck 14 lost its brakes while traveling 45 miles per hour on Interstate 40. The driver survived the crash, but the vehicle's front end crumpled completely, destroying the cargo. By the end of the day, an official report arrived at Laura Mitchell's desk. Doug Kendrick, the company's senior vice president and chief financial officer, briefed Laura on the incident. He claimed that Keith Palmer was the technician on record and presented a printed digital log showing no maintenance requests filed for Truck 14 in the preceding 3 months. The document indicated that Keith had signed off on the truck as safe without performing a proper inspection. Laura summoned Keith to a second-floor conference room. Doug stood quietly by the window, with his arms crossed. Pointing to the printed digital log, Laura informed Keith that the system showed no record of maintenance requests for Truck 14 and accused him of negligence. Keith remained calm, stating firmly that he had submitted 3 separate requests, all of which were denied and subsequently wiped from the system. When he looked at Doug, the executive stood silent, refusing to meet his eyes. Realizing his word meant nothing against a manipulated database controlled by executive management, Keith refrained from yelling, knowing that anger would not restore erased records. Laura signed the termination papers effective immediately. Accepting his fate, Keith requested a letter of recommendation for future employment emphasizing that he had a 9-year-old daughter to support. He cleared out his tool chest, packing his wrenches and his spiral notebook containing 200 pages of handwritten maintenance logs. That afternoon at 3:15 p.m., Keith picked up his daughter, Grace, from school. To shield her from anxiety, he said nothing about losing his job, listening attentively as she chatted about her daily spelling test. Midway through June, 2 weeks after his termination, Keith secured a job at Dalton's Garage, a modest 4-bay auto shop on Chapman Highway run by Frank Dalton for 30 years. Frank hired Keith after asking a single question: "What matters most when you're fixing a car for a stranger?" Keith answered immediately that the vehicle needed to safely carry the driver home to the people waiting for them. Within his first week, Keith demonstrated extraordinary expertise. He diagnosed a complex transmission fault on a pickup truck purely by listening to the engine's idle, and resolved an intricate fuel injection problem on a luxury SUV that Frank had worked on for weeks. One afternoon, Frank noticed Keith's toolbox cracked open. Resting inside was a worn photograph showing Keith wearing a corporate engineering vest, standing alongside an engineering team in front of a test engine. The name tag read, "K. Palmer, lead powertrain engineer." Unbeknownst to those at Ridgeline, Keith had previously served as the lead powertrain engineer at Cummins in Columbus, Indiana, holding 14 patents in diesel fuel injection systems and directing an 11-person research team. However, in 2021, corporate restructuring dissolved his division the very same year his wife, Amy, died in a car crash on Interstate 65. Seeking a quiet, fresh start for his daughter in her mother's hometown, Keith relocated to Knoxville and took the first job available as a fleet mechanic. Respecting Keith's privacy, Frank quietly assigned him the primary shop bay near the front window, offering optimal lighting and a clear view of the lot. After school, Grace often spent time at the garage, sorting bolts by size and playing with a stray calico cat that slept near the electrical panel, which she named Voltage. Uncovering the corporate cover-up back at Ridgeline Logistics, trouble re-emerged in late June when Truck 9 suffered an identical brake failure. Laura reopened Keith's paper HR file, which ran parallel to the digital database. Tucked inside the physical folder, she discovered an original handwritten maintenance form submitted by Keith in mid-May, clearly documenting the worn brake pads on Truck 14 and marking the issue as urgent. Realizing that a physical record existed despite being absent from the digital server, Laura conducted an after-hours investigation. She audited the company's financial records and discovered that Senior VP Doug Kendrick had cut the fleet brake maintenance budget by 40% over 2 consecutive quarters. Doug had falsified records by claiming extended parts life cycles per manufacturer guidelines that did not exist. Across 11 fleet vehicles, numerous safety-critical maintenance requests regarding brakes, tires, and steering had been systematically deleted from the system to cover up budget cuts. Laura built a detailed timeline documenting every discrepancy. Shortly after, she ran into Keith and Grace at a local grocery store parking lot. Expecting hostility or anger, Laura was met only with quiet courtesy when Keith greeted her politely before driving away with his daughter. Convinced of the truth, Laura reached out to Pam Reedley in Human Resources to investigate how Keith's file was processed. Pam admitted hesitantly that Doug Kendrick had personally overseen Keith's file, bypassing standard HR protocols. Shortly after, Pam resigned due to workplace pressure from Doug, but sent Laura scanned copies of Keith's 3 original paper maintenance requests, each marked with denied and stamped with Doug Kendrick's personal initials. As Laura pursued the investigation through an independent law firm, it forensics pulled system deletion logs, proving that 3 separate digital requests had been manually deleted from the corporate server using the admin account assigned to Doug Kendrick's office computer. Before the truth fully came to light, Laura's vehicle broke down on Chapman Highway that late evening. Keith replaced her snapped alternator belt on the roadside, ensuring she could safely travel home. When Laura later visited Dalton's garage to thank him and offer a coffee, Keith accepted out of mutual respect. They spoke quietly about starting fresh, though Laura refrained from apologizing until she could offer full, tangible justice. During a board meeting at Ridgeline Logistics, Doug Kendrick attempted to frame Laura for administrative negligence, alleging she failed to oversee fleet maintenance. In response, Laura presented the complete evidence package to the board, the 3 original handwritten maintenance requests submitted by Keith. The IT Forensics report linking the digital deletions directly to Doug's office IP address. The internal financial reports confirming Doug's unauthorized reduction of safety budgets. Faced with undeniable proof, the board voted 6-1 to fire Doug Kendrick immediately for fraud, falsification of records, and endangering personnel, while forwarding the findings to federal authorities. The board instructed Laura to clean Keith's personnel record entirely, issue 3 months of back pay, and extend an official offer of corporate reinstatement. Choosing peace over retaliation, Laura drove to Dalton's garage and handed Keith the official letter detailing his full exoneration, back pay, and job offer. Keith read the document carefully, folded it, and politely declined the position. He explained that during his time at the garage, he had regained a sense of peace that had been missing since his wife's passing. He preferred working in a quiet local shop where he could care for everyday people, spend quality time with his daughter, and work alongside Frank. As Laura stood in the bay, Grace ran in from school and introduced Laura to her cat, Voltish. Seeing the warmth and stability Keith had built for his daughter, Laura understood his decision completely. Over the following weeks, Ridgeline Logistics permanently implemented the Palmer Protocol, a strict dual logging system requiring both physical and digital verification for all fleet maintenance, ensuring no single executive could alter safety records ever again. Though Keith declined to return to corporate life, he and Laura maintained a quiet, lasting friendship built on mutual respect, moving forward past the dark stretch of road where their paths first crossed. Thank you so much for watching today's story. If this video touched your heart, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Solo Dad Stories for more touching tales about family, dignity, and second chances. Let us know in the comments below which moment stayed with you the most. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.